Sorry, I kind of got cut off there. But what I was going to say was the Tier 1 quarterbacks are like the people that can win despite like the circumstances. Like they can win a decent amount of games no matter the team. The Tier 1 guys for me, I kind of went over it yesterday. It's obviously Josh Allen, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Mahomes. I got Russell Wilson in there too. And I have Stafford in there as well. They put Stafford and Wilson in Tier 2. I think they're Tier 1 quarterbacks. And I would also argue for Herbert and Burrow, who are also in Tier 1 on his list. I'd put them in Tier 1 as well. It's kind of on the fence, though. Because, like I said yesterday, Burrow really only had one good season. And he made the Super Bowl. So it's hard to argue against him, but, you never know. So, but I'll keep him in Tier 1 right now. And, Herbert as well. For Tier 1. Alright. But, let's see. But I think the Tier 2, kind of guys are like Dak, Derek Carr, Kyler Murray, And I think Kirk is in there as well, I think he's a top 15 quarterback, And I think the GM spoke the obvious here, that yes, you're less likely to win a Super Bowl without a talented quarterback like Rodgers, Brady, or Mahomes, or even Stafford as well. You're obviously less likely to win without a Tier 1 quarterback. But it's not impossible, obviously. Like, there's been much worse quarterbacks than Kirk Cousins that have won a Super Bowl. Trent Dilfer won a Super Bowl. He wasn't bad. He was worse than Kirk Cousins. Cousins has way more talent than Trent Dilfer. Nick Foles won a Super Bowl. Even though it was a magical playoff run, I think we can all agree. If we had the choice, we would take Cousins over Nick Foles. So, he wouldn't be the worst quarterback ever to win a Super Bowl, But, I think I like Kirk Cousins. I believe he's a top 50 quarterback. So, I think you can win a Super Bowl with him if you get the right pieces around him. And he has great offensive weapons. It's just their defense is not as good. Alright, so Tomlin said, I'm going back to this. He said they're not going to micromanage in the quarterback battle. And, my problem with the Steelers is I feel like they demand, I don't want to say it, but I feel like they're turning kind of into the Cowboys a bit, where they demand a certain level of respect, and they just aren't as good as they probably think they are. They don't beat star quarterbacks in the playoffs. They barely even beat starting quarterbacks in the playoffs, A few years ago, was it 2 years ago actually? They were 12-4, and they lost to Baker Mayfield in the playoffs. I just think it's a 7-10, 8-9 team. I think they'll be okay. They develop well. But, you got Trubisky and a rookie at quarterback. It's not going to be easy to succeed with that, Alright, so let's see. What else do we have here? Alright, so Belichick said that the Patriots are not really big in titles. Obviously in response to, he was responding to why they didn't hire a new offensive coordinator. But, if I'm a young offensive coordinator, it's great that he isn't in the titles because, they don't matter to people who made... Titles don't matter to people who have already made it, like Belichick. And I think this is why. But I think this is why people are on the fence about people like the enemy, because they're like, the people that have made it aren't big on titles. Andy Reid, even though he hasn't won a lot of Super Bowls, he's an established head coach. He's successful. And I think the reason people are iffy on the enemy is, well, I think Reid calls the plays. You know, and this is a good example. You know, like, what's it called? Belichick isn't big on titles, so whoever gets hired as an offensive coordinator for them is like, he's gonna have, whoever gets hired as an offensive coordinator for them is gonna have like no value, because it's gonna be like, well, Belichick's not big on titles, maybe he's calling the plays, you know? Like, that's what people are gonna say if whoever gets hired as an OC for them, you know, whoever gets hired for that is going for a head coaching job. Like, no one's going to say, well, I think they are definitely calling the plays for the Pats because Belichick is huge on titles. You're like, he's not. So, I don't know. That's my take on that. I mean, Belichick's a really smart coach. It's just, you know, I don't think Belichick carried Brady or Brady carried Belichick. I think they carried each other. I think they were a good partnership despite their massive differences. You know, this is why people are so iffy on the enemy. Like, I thought he had the Texans job last year. They hired, they hired someone I haven't even heard of. Like, I forgot who they hired, actually. I don't even remember his name. Alright. So Joe Burrow is going to have a, this is a hard word to say. Appendectomy. There we go. Ahead of training. And, you know, I don't think this is going to take, the recovery time for this is long, so it's probably better he has this at the beginning of the year, though. Like, any injury, it's better if you have it at the beginning of the year, because obviously less impact on the season. So, you know, I think it'll be good to go early on. And I'm excited to see what he can do this year, honestly. If he brought them to the Super Bowl last year, it's just they're only going to get better, you know? I think it's going to be a really good battle between them and the Bills for the Super Bowl next year. I'm predicting the Chiefs to fall off a bit. Because Mahomes was slightly worse last year. It's possible he keeps declining. They lost Tyreek Hill. That's a big loss. That's a huge loss. He gets a lot of their touchdowns. Like I said, they still have Travis Kelce, probably the best tight end in the league right now. They're not in a bad spot, but they're not in the ideal spot. You know? Alright, so now I'm gonna have to say I'm gonna have to say a few good things about the Cowboys. Honestly, it's nothing that I didn't say earlier in the show, pretty much. It's pretty much all the same things. You know, they have a top 12 quarterback, you know, Dak Prescott. They're in a weaker conference. The NFC is significantly weaker than the AFC. The NFC East is terrible. And the only NFC contender that you have no reason to doubt is the Rams. Packers lost Adams. Brady seems to be losing that competitive fire with the Bucs, you know. And the Niners, who made the NFC Championship last year, are going through a quarterback change. You know, Garoppolo. It's possible Trey Lance starts at the beginning of the year. It's looking like that. Looking that way, actually. You know, like, moving on, doing hitting the restart button on that is going to be, not really the restart button, but changing quarterbacks is going to be a big change. Especially when you're not really in a rebuild. Like, that's not really a rebuild thing to do. Like, it's an awkward position to be in right now. For the Niners, it's... They're changing quarterbacks, and they have a good-ass team. And a great coach, too. Like, they're not cleaning out the house at all. They're not rebuilding. They're just changing quarterbacks. That's not a normal thing. And also about the Cowboys, I think Parsons is a great addition to the defense. CeeDee Lamb's just getting better, so he's going to look good. Anyway, back to the Niners, actually. Shanahan says that they are moving on to Trey Lance. And, it's... The thing is, with Garoppolo, he's not a spectacular quarterback, not ridiculously talented. He doesn't have the talent of Rodgers. He's not clutch like Brady, I guess. So he doesn't have any... He's not a tier 1 quarterback, really. That's what I'm saying. He's more of a tier 3 guy. I'd probably put him around the same area as the Prescotts and the Cousins, where they're kind of tightroping the top 5. Or top 10, my bad. But they're more around the top 15, He's not a bad quarterback. But think about it. The last 2 times Garoppolo has started a full season, they lost in the Super Bowl to the Chiefs, and last year they lost to the Super Bowl champion Rams in the NFC Championship. And in both of those games, they were leading in the fourth quarter. So they've come pretty close to winning Super Bowls. And Jimmy G, in weeks 10 to 18 last year, he was second in completion percentage, second in yards per attempt, second in passer rating, or fourth in passer rating, my bad. He had a 103 passer rating, 9 yards per attempt, 71 completion percentage. Like, he was good towards the end, and honestly, I think he had a better... I think this year, for Jimmy Garoppolo, was more successful than Rodgers this year. Even though he won MVP, like Rodgers, they should have went way further, the Packers. This was one of Rodgers' best years. One of the Packers' best years. They were 13-4. They were the 1 team yet again. They got a bye, and they lost to the Niners. I think it's best to put Jimmy G in. I really do. Because that first 10 weeks is not very easy. They open up with the Bears. That's not bad. See, the Bears and the Seahawks, that's okay. They go to the Broncos. They're going to be outmatched that game with Russell Wilson. Rams, outmatched by Stafford. Panthers, I think Baker Mayfield is a better quarterback than Trey Lance. I'm not saying they're going to lose these games. I'm saying their quarterback is going to get outplayed in them. Like, they're outplayed in, what's it called? I think 4 of those first 6 games. 4 of those first 5 games, actually. Or no, 3. 3 of the first 5 games. I think Trey Lance is on par with Drew Lock and Justin Fields, probably. But then they go to the Falcons. Yeah, that's fine. Then they go to the Chiefs. He's going to be outplayed by Mahomes. He's going to be outplayed by Stafford the next week. Then the Chargers, then the Cardinals. So, in, I think, 8 of those 3 weeks, 8 of the first 10 games, 7 of the first 10 games, their quarterback's going to be outplayed. That's not a good thing, because they're going to lose a few of those. And Garoppolo may not be as good without Shanahan, but it's still fine because he is, he's... If he succeeds with Shanahan, that should be even more of a reason for him to be the Niners quarterback. Maybe not someone else's quarterback, but don't trade him because he succeeds with the Niners. So I don't see why they want to keep him as a starter, but it's their loss. And I could be wrong. So, I'm just going to trust the fact that Shanahan knows more about football than me, and I'm just going to see what happens. So the Heat are moving ahead with their current team. They're not trading for KD. I think he's getting out. I think he's getting put in the similar category to Kyrie and Harden, where he's a great player. He's talented. I mean, Harden and Kyrie's actually still really good, actually. He averaged, I think, like 27 when he played last year. Problem is he didn't get vaccinated, so he only played like 20 games. And he wasn't injured. I think I already said this multiple times. He's not a reliable guy, Kyrie. But he's great when he plays, But Harden's kind of fallen off a bit, but anyway. KD is like 33. He's not 40. He's got time. And he's like a 29-point-a-game guy. And yet, teams like the Heat and Golden State are coming out publicly saying, we don't want him. We're good with our roster. Granted, they have great rosters, but it would not hurt to put KD in there. I mean, maybe the Warriors, because they are developing a lot of young players right now. But the Heat, absolutely not. They got Jimmy Butler. I think KD might team well with him. But it's just I've been saying this for a while. I think he might be better off leaving Kyrie, or Kyrie just getting traded. Or if Kyrie just gets traded, that might be a good thing too. But I think the problem is he's in that kind of diva category with, Kyrie and Harden. So it's hard for teams to say, we want this guy, I think that's what's holding them back. It's just a little annoying. Alright. So, back to the Cowboys. Jerry Jones said that Mike McCarthy wouldn't be here still if he didn't think he'd be able to lead the team to the Super Bowl. And, I think Jerry Jones is normally laid back with his coaches. He's normally a patient guy. Normally gives them an extra year than I probably would give them. I'd probably fire them the year before that. But, this is an important year for them, though, because what I think it is AFC is the best because they've developed and drafted quarterbacks very well. Like, the Bengals got Joe Burrow. They made the Super Bowl. Justin Herbert went to the Chargers. They're a better team. They're getting closer and closer to the playoffs. Derek Carr with the Raiders. He's always been a good quarterback. They just had to get a better roster, and then they got Devontae Adams. So, this is an important year for the Cowboys, and probably also Mike McCarthy, because he still hasn't proven he can win without Aaron Rodgers. So the Bucs signed Julio Jones, and they apparently Fournette. Leonard Fournette weighed in at 245, appearing 15 pounds lighter. So I think Jones will do well there. It seems like it's Brady's last year, but you can never be too sure of that. But I think he'll do well there. It's a 1-year deal. Nothing crazy. But have you noticed, all the great teams have a great receiving core right now. Like the Bucks, a lot of weapons in the receiving core. Bengals got T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, Jamar Chase. Bills, they have a pretty good receiving core too. Like all these great teams that are threats have great receiving cores. That's what I'm noticing. They're getting more important in the NFL. Rams had Cooper Kupp, the best receiver in the league last year. But, alright, that's probably the last segment for today. I mean, you know what, I'll just go over a few of the biggest storylines this offseason. Get my takes on those. I think Tua is going to be a lot better this year. I think he's going to thrive with the Dolphins. He's 13-8 without the offense he has now. Like, he has better offense now than he ever has. So I think he's going to thrive this year, Tua. I think it's going to be a breakout season for him. Baker versus Sam Darnold. I think Baker should probably... I think he's a better quarterback, obviously, but... Matt Rule is on the hot seat, and he has a very high chance of getting fired. So he might play it safe and say, well, I know Sam Darnold better. Sam Darnold knows the offense better than Baker at the moment. He might just, I'm not sure. He might just say Sam Darnold. I think Russell Wilson's going to be great in Denver. I think he'll adapt to Nathaniel Hackett's system, I think Nathaniel Hackett's going to be a great coach. I think the Broncos have a decent chance at the division this year. Like I said, the Chiefs might be the outlier this year. The Chargers are only getting better. I think the Chargers are ultimately going to be the last in the division, and then Broncos, Raiders, and Chiefs are going to battle it out, but I think it's very likely the Chiefs would be towards the bottom of the division. It's possible. I don't know what the Packers are going to do with their receiving core. I don't think there's going to be a new number one guy. I think it's going to be a bunch of 2s and 3s. Like, Sammy Watkins is not in his prime anymore. He's probably more of a 2 right now than a 3, so it's... it's tough. I don't think Adams is going to regret leaving Rodgers. I think he's going to have a good year. He knows Carr well. He played in college with him. He has a great relationship with him. It's... I'm sure that's going to work fine. I think Jimmy G gets traded, not in the offseason, but if they start struggling in the beginning of the year. If they start him. I think that's what they should do. They start him in the beginning of the year. If they struggle, ship him off, and then... Sorry about that. And then move on to Trey Lance. I think that's what they should do. I think Drew Lock is probably going to beat out Geno Smith for the QB position in Seattle. I think Seattle's going to have another rough year because those are both bad quarterbacks, and they're just in a rough spot right now, Seattle. They're not in a good place. And finally, I do think Trey Lance is going to get high praise, although I'm not entirely sure of what to make of him right now. So, there's some of my takes for the offseason. So, this was a good podcast. This is Dylan Miller on Daily Dose of Dylan. Google Podcast, Spotify, Spreaker, and iHeartRadio. Good stuff today. And I will see you tomorrow. Like I said, it's possible next week I don't get on the podcast as much. And I told you, anytime I have the chance, I will record a podcast. At the very least. That's all I can promise you. I can't promise you anything else, but I will see you tomorrow. So, have a good day.